Welcome to another WorldViz webinar. We are happy to have you. Good morning to those of you in the United States, and good afternoon or good evening to those joining us from around the world. We're so excited for this topic, practical AI for VR behavioral science. Before we get started, I just want to say a quick shout out to our partner BioPack. They also promoted this webinar, so welcome to those who are coming in through the WorldViz customer email database who saw this in our newsletter and signed up. And then also welcome to the many guests who are joining us from BioPack. We are really excited for this presentation. Without further ado, since we're on the clock and recording already, we're just going to jump right in. Real quick introduction to the presenters, all of us on camera right now. So my name is Dan. I'm the head of sales for the Americas here at WorldViz. I'll be the MC and kind of giving some introduction here. And then our two experts in the field today are Seda Rabaudi, our product manager for Vizard and SightLab, the WorldViz VR development platform, and Andy Beal, our principal co-founder and chief scientist. Andy's coming to us live from our headquarters in Santa Barbara in our Prism room, so you can see our surround theater environment that Andy's standing in. These are all real backgrounds. No trickery here. So a real quick overview of the topics we'll be covering today. First and foremost, we're going to give a little bit of an introduction to WorldViz, what it is we do, and how we see AI and how our products work with this kind of major revolution in large language models and AI, and how we really work to take advantage of that. After that, we're going to get a live demonstration from Seda of our currently available custom GPT for coding assistance when you're developing VR experiments. So we'll be doing that live for you all. Then we're going to shift topics a little bit and actually show how an AI agent might be deployed in a VR scenario for social behavioral research. So that's going to be a pretty interesting demonstration. After that, we're going to do a really quick overview of different AI content generation tools, so making 3D models, making panoramics. And then Andy is going to give us a really great overview for best practices for scientific prompt writing and a quick preview of our upcoming MCP server-based accelerated AI-enabled development tools. Throughout this entire webinar, we're going to be doing Q&A, so you'll see that there's actually a live question section, so you can just type a question directly in there, and we will take that question into consideration, and we'll try to answer it kind of live over the chat, but we're also going to have a dedicated Q&A section at the end, so stick around for that because that's always a fun discussion point. This webinar is being recorded. It will be posted to our YouTube, so look forward to that in the future, but definitely stick around because it's going to be a great presentation from start to finish. So really quick, we're just jumping in here to the WorldViz introduction. Our expertise is really in research applications of virtual reality. We were founded in 2002, so we're almost 25 years of providing cutting-edge virtual reality solutions almost exclusively to the research market. So many of our customers include Stanford, Yale, Harvard, University of Michigan, Michigan State Universities gets a shout out in this presentation for one of the papers that they published using our AI tools. So really, we're just very focused on providing the best tools that we can to researchers who want to use virtual reality. So part of that includes building VR labs. So we have an entire projection VR and immersive room product line like what Andy's standing in front of. But a lot of what our customers and really kind of what we're speaking to today is in the headset world. So our software, which is Vizard and SightLab, these are VR development tools that allow you to very quickly build a VR environment and deploy it to a PC-based VR headset. So Vizard is our core development platform. It's a Python-based platform that's, right now we're on Vizard 8, so it's developed over many years. And it's really, again, hyper-focused on research use cases. You just, with a couple lines of Python code, have a VR application ready to run on, HTC Vive, Meta Quest, any of the major VR headsets. And then on top of the Vizard development platform, we have SightLab VR Pro. And that is basically a collection of Vizard scripts that we've developed over many years to accelerate development even faster for our customers. So right now there's over 100 templates and pre-configured scenes that make it very quick for you to deploy VR experiments. So you can see here, there's eye tracking that's included, lots of different metrics and data that's automated. So SightLab basically just is an accelerated layer on top of Vizard. So these two platforms work in conjunction with each other. So really fast, just want to sort of give you a quick overview of why we think the WorldViz platform is really well positioned to take advantage of these large language models. And that is because this is a screenshot of the Vizard IDE, the integrated development environment, and you can see it's just Python code. So Vizard is a Python native code first platform. Every single stimulus interaction in your VR environment, when you pick things up, any device hook, how you connect to, different tracking devices or physiological devices, every bit of data flow is controlled by code. That code is reproducible, it's readable, it's reviewable, it's all in Python, it's right there. There's an entire, you can basically see a live readout of the entire code right in front of you. And what that means is that it's actually ripe for prompting. So you can effectively, just with a single prompt, generate an entire working bit of Vizard code in one go, a one-off, as Andy will speak about a little bit later. So because everything can be controlled by code, that allows you to really just very quickly develop applications with large language models. So this is a little bit about what we'll be presenting today and showing you how this actually works. If you contrast that a little bit with more GUI focused tools, you might have to have code snippets, but with Vizard, you can actually just throw an entire code in there. So it's a little bit more complicated than that, and we'll give you some pointers throughout the day as to how that looks. But the kind of key takeaway here is that thanks to this underlying IDE, we really allow large language model prompting in a very accelerated development pipeline. So that's what we really see as the primary value that our customers are getting out of AI, is that you can build your experiments much faster. So throughout the day, we'll be showing you different versions of this, but that's kind of the key takeaway is like, wow, this is actually accelerating my development. And additional benefits, these are a couple things that I alluded to at the beginning of our presentation, but basically, and we'll talk through this in a couple different ways. But one of the other things that Andy will show you is how AI can be used as a sounding board for scientific researchers. So it's really quite cool the way that you can treat really chat or any of these agents as really an informed participant in your work, where you can have them challenge your ideas, look for flaws in your logic. There's some emerging ways that large data sets can be crunched using AI. And then also something that Seda will show us today, even richer paradigms that can be developed. So having AI confederates, personalizing different AI actors that can then act as independent characters within a scene for social behavioral research. So this is going to be a pretty far-ranging presentation since we'll be covering all of these different topics. Yeah, again, if you have any questions, and this is the first in a series of webinars that we're planning on doing on AI. So we're looking forward to your feedback too, to see what would you like to see more of in the future. One other thing that we see as an emerging value is the 3D and 360 content production with these AI generative tools. So we'll be giving a little bit of a presentation on that as well. So now that our introduction and kind of framing mechanism is complete, we're going to send out our first poll. So it's really great if you guys participate in this poll, because then we push this out and everybody gets to see what the answers are. So if you can go ahead and fill in. I see some answers coming in. 7% have voted, a little bit more up. We're getting some more clicks now. That's perfect. So this is great. This is really helping us understand how our audience is using AI currently. So I'll give it about 2 more seconds. We've gotten most people to vote. This is great. Thank you everybody for your participation here. So let's go ahead and I'll share the results now. So this is pretty exciting. You can see about 8% of us is not using AI yet, which is, you know, that's understandable. 18% is exploring, but not actively using. And then a solid 36% is using occasionally for small tasks. So then 22% and 16%. So a little bit over a third are using it in a more accelerated way. So I think that's pretty representative. So you know, there'll be a little bit of something for everybody in this presentation, but we hope that this will kind of give you some guidance as to how you can use it in your research. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Sato to get us started. Somehow it's giving me every attendee as an option to hand it over to. There we go. All right, Sato, you're the presenter now.
Okay, thanks, Dan. So yeah, the first thing that we're going to show, maybe some of you are already leveraging this because this is available today, and this is a link we could share with you. It's also linked in the SightLab documentation and the installation files. But this is basically showing you how you can leverage a custom GPT that's trained on the full SightLab and Vizard documentation and code base. So I mean, what this allows you to do is you can really quickly begin assembling your VR experiment just by simply using natural language questions. I mean, just any way that you do the same prompting with AI. So you just type in your question. And so, for example, you could ask things like, how do you set up a trial with 360 video? How do you do gaze-based interactions for eye tracking? How do you integrate even things like a rating scale or instructions? So rather than having to search through all the documentation, you can just immediately get like example scripts, and you could query like the SightLab assistant for, basically it'll generate Python code that you can just immediately copy and paste. And then because this is leveraging all of the built-in tools that the SightLab and Vizard package has, you'll immediately be able to start collecting data, connect to the hardware, be able to synchronize with Acknowledge if you're using Biopack, and visualize the data. So all of that will just be out of the box because this is leveraging all of those capabilities, and then just being able to generate the code that you could use. So just to demonstrate first, like what's a very simple example. So you could just say like, how do I add an environment and an object that I can collect view counts on and grab. Sorry, I got the go to webinar windows in the way. And then you don't really need to say this, but if you want to just make sure it gives you the full code, you just say, show me the code. And now what this is going to do is just really quickly put out some code, but it's also going to show you exactly what it's doing and how this works. And so this is bringing in the SightLab class and then adding an environment just based off of one of the built-in environments that we have with our resources. And then it's adding a cube. So this is using one of the built-in shapes that we have in our library. And then it's adding that to be collecting eye tracking data on it. So things like dwell time and view counts, and then you automatically would get like the fixations and the saccades, and then that you could grab this object. And then it's just adding some instructions. It's going to run for 20 seconds. And so now I could just copy this code, and now we could put it right into the Vizard editor here. And then now I could save this, and I'll just save it somewhere where I could. I'll save it in here. And now you could just run this code, and it's immediately, if I was connected to something like the Vive Focus Vision or the MetaQuest Pro, I could select that headset, but I'm just going to run right now a desktop at all of these headsets that are already connected will be immediately available, and you could add more. And this is also something you could use even if you just need support, like how do something's not working, you could ask those questions. Now this is just going to say, look around, press the trigger, left mouse button, and now there's this cube, and I could grab the cube. And when I look at it, you could see up in the left, it's showing when I start dwelling on this object for over 500 milliseconds. And then it's going to run for 20 seconds, because I guess it just chose that for the trial. So all of these trial-based setups and everything, that's just built in. And now it says end of trial. And now what I could do just immediately without having to do any extra coding is now I could go in and run a replay to be able to visualize what happened. And then I could look at the data. And if I was connected with, like I said, BioPack, you would be able to then see how that synchronizes with the physio. But now here I could pause and I could move this to different parts of the scene, view like the heat map or the scan paths. And then I could go in and look at the data that I've collected. So there's a whole lot of data, which I'm not going to go into detail with all of that right now in the time we have, but you can look through the documentation and see that if I was wearing an eye-tracked headset, I would have the individual eye position and Euler values and fixations and saccades and pupil diameter. And then there's all of these additional data files that'll let you look at like custom conditions that you're setting, or what was, for instance, like if you want to look at the average value, or if you want to add like average heart rate or any of that. But that's just really quickly showing you that because we have these built-in tools and because we have this custom GPT, this is just a really quick and simple way to be able to start iterating through your experiment. And then if you wanted to do something more complex, you could change the models up here. So for instance, you could put this on the thinking mode, and now I could try to do something a little more complex. But this is where it gets into the realm of there might be a little bit of iterations, and you could add files. So if you want to add your whole project with different files, then you could add that here, and it could kind of go through those. And you could start over time be able to even get into something that's a little bit more complex. But here I'll just say something like, can you generate me a stimulus where there is a moving target? So we'll see how this works, that I'm tracking with my eyes. Let me move this window again. And simultaneously present 5 distractor that I'm supposed to ignore. Instructions to trial 1, say, do not move your head. And so now I'm just creating a very simple condition that the first trial, the participant is not allowed to move their head. The second trial, they can. And you could save those conditions into the data files too. So you could say like, how does the variable of having your head not moving affect like the dependent measures that you're looking at? And so that will go in and to the data files. But now this is going to take not too much longer usually for something like this. I mean, this is where the thinking mode will take a little bit more time to reason through and make sure that it's kind of checking itself on what it's doing. So it thought for 38 seconds, and we'll see. I mean, if this works. I mean, sometimes these things, like I said, as anyone that's used AI knows, there might be sometimes some possible iterations. And so this is adding an environment, adding some target objects, setting the color, and then it's setting the, should be setting the movement here. So and now this is giving you the instructions for trial 1 and the instructions for trial 2. And this one, I mean, I can't guarantee that these things will always work with one shot, but it gives you an idea at least of how this is set up. So if I run this one, I guess we'll find out. And if you are doing something with a larger project, then yeah, I would recommend trying out the thinking mode. And now this is saying, track the red sphere with your eyes only. Do not move your head. Press trigger or left mouse button to start. And here it has these objects that are moving, and I'm tracking the red one. And I forgot to check if it's probably doing 20-second trials again, I think. Yeah, and now it's saying this is the second trial. This environment obviously is not the best one to use because then the objects are behind the wall, but you can easily swap out these environments. So this is where you could put in a different environment model, either from our included resources or one that you have on your own. So, but yeah, that's just a basic kind of overview on the way our current custom GPT can work. And then there's obviously a lot more that you can explore with it, but this is something you can try out today. And we could send you the link, or if you have Vizard in SightLab, which this is already included in that documentation.
Yeah. Maybe it's just worth pointing out really fast, Sato, that this is all part, if you go to help.worldviz.com, you'll find the whole SightLab documentation section. So all of this is just streamlined for our SightLab tool, which you can download and try today. It's a PC Windows-based application. So if you also go to worldviz.com, you'll see under support a downloads tab. So you can try this for yourself at home. Yeah, and I would also recommend if this is your first time seeing SightLab and Vizard, I think a lot of people that we see in the attendee list are customers and friends of ours. But if this is your first time, we have a whole history of webinars that we've done in the past. One of our previous webinars just a couple months ago gave a really good detailed introduction to SightLab and how that works. So if this is looking a little new to you, I definitely recommend checking that out. But as you can see on the screen right now, this is a great place to start. Is just downloading the software and trying it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, as Dan said, if you go to the documentation, this link to here is just under the code reference section. And so yeah, now to kind of switch gears a little bit, this is the next thing we're showing in regards to how we're leveraging some of the AI capabilities. And now this is interesting, where you can actually attach a large language model to a conversational agent in your scene. And so this works with all the different avatar libraries. So we connect with things like Reallusion or Mixamo or Rocketbox. So there's a lot of options. And so this is very dynamic in that you can not only use just simple text prompts to customize the personality of this avatar that you're interacting with and how it's going to role play, but you can also customize its voice using things like 11 Labs or OpenAI, or you can customize the way it looks. And so that's what you could swap out the gender or the race, and you could connect with the various animations and morph values, so that this is really a dynamic avatar, and you can interact with it just using your voice because it has speech recognition capabilities, or you could use text. And it's also important to note that this can work offline. So if you're doing research and you don't want to have to put in API keys and share data online, you could use a tool called Ollama, which is linked to in the documentation, and that way you could connect with all of the offline models like Gamma and DeepSeek and Llama and all of these ones that will just run fully offline. And some of those are pretty lightweight, like DeepSeek. You could get that with a pretty low amount of overhead. And there's not really the ability right now to share the sound. And so you could just look at this video yourself. And this is just showing, this is a prompt. I had GPT help me actually create the prompt too. And I'm selecting the avatar here, and I'm using speech recognition, and then I have a script that's for a sample job interview, and then I'm selecting, I think, ChatGPT, and then I'm just going to do this on desktop. And now you can't really hear the sound, but this is also showing you the latency can vary right now between like 2 to 5 seconds from when you stop speaking to when you get a response. And so I was just saying, I'm here for the job interview, and now it's asking me questions, and it's kind of just going back and forth. And because this is built on Vizard and SightLab, you can also, all of this data is being saved. And so you could replay this, you could save transcripts, you could look through the dialogue, and then you could modify things. And that's where, actually, let me skip over to this slide here. So that's where if you're modifying something, this is a study that was done at MSU, and we have a link to it here, where they were using an AI agent in VR, and they were looking at over a text chat to measure immersion, presence, and connection, and they were modifying gender and see how that relates to gaze and rating based off of gender. And so you could look at the study here. It was published in Computers and Human Behavior. So this is actually already using the capability of using an AI-based agent and how that works. And this slide is just showing you that you can also bring in multiple agents, which is kind of interesting because you could see, like, for instance, these two agents can even play off each other. So they can ask each other questions, and you could see how they converse either with each other, or you could converse with multiple agents. And you could also bring this into a multi-user session and say, for instance, if you're wanting to demonstrate, like giving a lesson on anatomy, and you want the avatar to be able to have information about what it's guiding someone through. And now there's even the ability to leverage the vision capabilities. And so now a lot of them, now you could just get a snapshot of what actually is in this environment, and then it has a contextual knowledge of, like, oh yeah, I'm in a scene with there's organs and body systems here, and you could just set that up. And this one I'm actually going to let Dan speak about. So this is a use case where they were doing multi-user stuff with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you mind just pressing play and full screening that video for a second there, Sato?
Yeah.
So this is a project that we're very proud of, that we delivered late last year, earlier this year. And this is a large multi-user VR classroom at LaSalle University outside of Boston. So this uses one of our large touch walls, but it also features 12 VR headset student stations. And what's really cool about this is we actually have the ability to bring these AI agents that Sato's been demonstrating. You can bring them in and actually have them be basically a tutor in these customizable VR environments. So maybe it's worth, Sato, really quickly flashing on our help section to show folks where they can find all of these example scripts. If you check out this section on our under help.worldviz.com, and you go to our example scripts library section, you'll see all of these things that Sato's talking about. So adding AI agents is right there on the left. So really, you can basically bring these things together, customize them, whether you're doing research or education or just messing around. You can customize your own agent with its own personality. You can hook it up again. And I think in the next slide, Sato, actually, it shows a really good example of this. So perfect. So this is another example of how this can be used. You can point at a painting, for example, in this case, the Mona Lisa, actually read out LLM generated information about this environment. So we've put proof of concepts together for this, for turbines, for windmills and things like that. But basically anything that you hook it up to with this this recognition, it can actually basically be like an automated tutor for you in these types of scenes. So, and again, all of this is customizable. These are just frameworks that we provide. You can swap any, you can change the pictures in here, so it could be anything. So we have really over 100 different frameworks for different types of educational and research applications, and all that can now hook up to these different LLM models. So anyway, back to you, Sato.
Yep, and just another one that sometimes is also good for research if you want something that's very repeatable, because obviously AI can generate things, but it's not always generated 100% the same, is you could do scripted avatars, and that's where you just have your script like specifically set with like text files, and then it's just using the text-to-speech models like 11 Labs or OpenAI to just have an avatar kind of speak those scripts essentially. And so that's another thing to consider. And this is something that's just kind of coming to being a capability, which is very interesting, is these are not videos. These are interactive agents also trained on videos. And so now you can have a scripted avatar or a conversational avatar that looks like this. And I mean, you've probably already seen videos like this and you weren't even aware that it was an avatar. And now it's like flooding all these YouTube vloggers. But essentially in the realm that you could use this in a setting where you want someone to interact with an avatar and it looks like a realistic person, you would just train it on the video. And we've also done in the past with VR, if you want to have this a little bit more of an interactive setting, you could remove the background with like a green screen. I think I have that example here, and then you could do what's called a rotoscoped avatar, and then you see just the background, and then you have this. It's still a flat 2D video, but it looks, the fact that you could put it inside of a 3D scene makes it more interactive in that sense. Oh, and then I guess now we're going to the next poll.
Yes, it's poll time. So we've reached the second poll in our presentation. So I'm going to go ahead. So we're curious, for those of you who are dabbling in AI right now, what types of AI applications have you tried, if any? So are we talking about coding assistance, experiment design, data analysis? Have you tried these interactive agents in a simulation, content generation? Okay, so we're seeing a lot of answers coming in here, which is great. We were at over half of you have participated. This is really great participation, everybody. And I think it helps the whole audience to see what their peers in the field are doing too. So it's really exciting, and we're very grateful for you all to participate. So I'll go ahead and close and share the poll now so everybody can see the results. So most folks who have tried this have tried it for coding assistance, which is great. We think there's some really exciting functions, and Andy's going to allude to this a little bit in his upcoming part of the presentation about how we really think that we can accelerate with that capability. So yeah, I think in content generation is actually our next topic. So why don't we jump right into content generation? Sato, back to you.
Okay. Are you seeing my screen again?
Yes.
Okay. Well, actually, yeah. So to preface this, we have a slide here, which I was actually Andy was gonna speak with this one, and then I'll jump into showing some of these tools. So
sure.
Yeah, and
yeah, I mean, in many ways, guys, I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Just these are 6 sort of dimensions that you might consider when trying to evaluate the use of AI tools. So, it's easy to get kind of blown away and sucked into how fancy, shiny some of these generative AI tools are, but they can take it down a path of loss of control, lack of consistency. So just we'll share this. These are 6 sort of rule of thumb metrics you might want to consider when you're quickly evaluating your generative AI tools. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a good point to consider. And I don't know how many of you have experience trying these out, but one good resource, if you're kind of not sure what is out there, is we've been maintaining a list here. Actually, we have this WorldViz asset browser, which the link is also in the documentation. And so there's links to some of the standard libraries like Sketchfab and now Fab and TurboSquid, but there's also a tab on here called AI creation. And these are all of the tools. It's obviously constantly updating, like Meshi just released a new version today. And so there's always new tools and they're always iterating forward. But for instance, if you go here to Meshi, and this is actually one of the more popular ones right now, but they all work very similar in that they give you text to 3D or image to 3D. And so for image to 3D, you could upload an image, and now you could even do like a front and a back and a side to try to get a little bit more accuracy on creating a 3D model out of your images. Or you could just do like text, obviously, and then this one was a leather couch, and then it takes about a minute sometimes to generate, and then with Meshi you generate the model first and then the textures. I mean, I could just really quickly jump to just show you what I just generated with that same text prompt. So this is a leather couch, And now, because our tools support all of the standard model formats, the one that usually comes in the best is GLB. And so if I just download as GLB, this will immediately be able to be used inside of a Vizard and SightLab application, and you could just drop it right in and it's going to work right away. I mean, obviously you could sometimes need to iterate a little bit depending on what style that you're using. And now also Meshi and some of these other tools now have the ability to be able to rig up an avatar if you're generating an avatar, and they could start segmenting the model pieces. So it is giving a little bit more control. And then yeah, so that's more targets. And then these are some of the other ones you could explore. Again, I would just look through that list so you could see. And this is also showing you, so these tools have Python APIs, and since our tool set is Python based, you can then, there's examples where you could bring in the Python API, and now you could just inside VR type or speak what you want to see. So I'm just saying leather couch here, and now I have the leather couch and I can kind of place it around. And so this is just showing you that this has the ability to connect with Python, and then you could bring this right into a scene and connect immediately directly to these APIs as well. And so yeah, that's the 3D content generation side, and there's probably a lot more to say, but I would just try some of these tools out yourself. They're pretty, most of them have free trials, or they're pretty cheap to test. And when we go into 360 media, I'm not sure if we had mentioned this before, but our tool set works very well with 360 immersive media as well. So we could put this either in a headset, or we have the ability to use what's called our Prism immersive theater, which is you could look at 360 images and videos inside of a touch screen immersive room. And so we have a lot of ways we could connect with 360 media. For 360 media with AI, there's even more risk, because then if your whole stimuli is just the 360 media, then you're going to be prone to understanding that you might get more kind of uncanny artifacts or things that you just have to iterate through. But this skybox is one of the better ones. You can also these days use ChatGPT to create spherical images, and these might also be good just for like a backdrop in like if you have a 3D model and you want some backdrop outside the window. That's another way to use the 360 media. This is a tool that I think is already pretty useful in that now you could upscale your 3D models textures or change the textures, and you could use ChatGPT again for this, or are there image ones to do image based prompts? This Magnific is a pretty good one. It just will do very high upscales and reimaginings even of certain textures in your models. And another interesting application is you can use AI-based animation creation tools like Deep Motion or Rokoku and Kinetics, where then you could just use a phone, take a video of yourself acting something out, and then it creates an FBX or GLTF animation that can be attached to an avatar. So now you could do animation creations for avatars. And not going to go too deep into this, because this really depends on how this will be used in your research, but just to be aware of, obviously there's a lot of video and image generation tools now, and they're constantly getting better and better. I mean, now Gemini has built-in VO3 and Nano Banana, which are very high quality generations, but there's also obviously things like Runway, and so you can explore these depending on how this fits your use case. And the last item that I was going to go over on this kind of very fast-paced overview on the content generation side is generating audio. And ElevenLabs is a really good resource for that, because not only can you generate narrations for like scripted avatars, you could clone your own voice or someone else's voice. You can also generate now sound effects and even like ambient audio, like say you're doing a visual search in a shopping mall scenario and you want to just generate some shopping ambient sounds, it'll do that. Or you could also use something like Suno, which will create actual like music if you want some music for whatever you're doing in your application. But ElevenLabs, you can start exploring that if you haven't already. And now I'm going to switch over to Andy, where he's going to talk a little bit more about some of the coding side of things.
All right, thanks, Taylor, for that. Great whirlwind of content creation tools and coding.
Yeah.
So let's see, am I sharing my screen okay?
We got you.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
thanks. All right, so I'm going to kind of step back a little bit and then kind of drop down quickly into a sort of a preview of some of the projects we've been working on to really lock into AI to help our customers. So just to step back for a sec. So prompting. So you know, Dan's made a really important point, and that's that our tool chain is extremely sort of code centric, Python first, code first. So really gives you a lot of access points. So just really understanding what can you do with that prompt. So first off, prompt is much like what we're used to over the last couple of decades, actually, Google queries, but in some ways, in many important ways, very, very different. So yes, a prompt gives you back information. It can unlock all sorts of possibilities, and I'm going to go into some of those sort of less obvious ways that it can unlock important aspects. So tokens matter. So what I mean by that is that any like Google-like query, yes, it's very likely to give you back something that you find interesting. So yeah, short prompts, a sentence or so, can be effective, but I'm sure that many of you are aware, the better crafted your prompt, the more you're going to trigger the models to dig deeper, to give you a smarter response, and actually trigger reasoning in many of the frontier models that are available today. So a well-crafted prompt means several things. It means you have stated context. It means you've taken time to provide initial state data about your problem space and what you want the model to accomplish. It's difficult to really communicate a complex problem in 1 or 2 sentences. So a strong prompt, in my book, is a prompt that's going to take you, the human, quite a bit of time to make. So you know, unlike a Google query that you're going to just shoot off your keyboard in seconds, you're going to take minutes. You're going to potentially take half hour or an hour to create a prompt that's going to be a half a page or several pages of text that's really explaining the, like I said, the initial state and what you're trying to accomplish, and then stating how you want the output delivered to you. So let's go into that just a little more. So I'm in a couple slides, I'll show a couple of template examples of that, but let's just push this a little bit further. And this is something that I trust many of you are doing, but if you haven't tried this yet, absolutely start using like GPT-5 or the other frontier models. You know, don't just accept, you know, everybody's aware of hallucinations. Those have gotten much, much better. But what I mean by don't just accept, try opening up the model to as a debating partner, or a prompt it, challenge it to question your logic, to evaluate your study design, your conclusions if you're writing a journal article, your code. You can paste in, literally any modern model can handle somewhere between 400,000 and 1 million tokens, which translates into hundreds of pages of text. So likely your entire Python code base for any of your projects easily fit into that initial context. So you can paste an entire project and have it look for, you know, flaws in your data recording. So, you know, experiment, do more than just code snippets. Pardon me. So with psychology experiments, we use something that we internally call an experiment brief. And this is basically a template prompt for having the AI generate an effective code base for you. And effective is in both a sort of a one-shot manner, meaning what Seda was showing some really impressive results with, which is putting in a prompt and the very first response from the AI is something that works. So, you know, high one-shot success. but also being able to go in and revise that. So the more you create a structured experiment brief, the more likely you are to get a one-shot success. But importantly, the more you're going to be set up in order to go and constrain the revisions that you're expecting the AI to provide you. What's more, with a well executed experiment brief prompt, you can push the model for giving you information beyond the experiment code. You can have it spot ethics, IRB concerns. You can have it go ahead and plan out your data analysis plan, and provide you R code, Python code already for testing out, say, even sample data before you start running subjects. So I'm going to show you what we call this experiment brief. I'm going to show you a very condensed version. I'll show you an expanded real quickly, and then I'll show you one for like an actual study. And let me say, so here's a markdown editor. If you know the term markdown, I recommend using that for all your prompts and for your communication back and forth, even copy and paste with your models. If you don't know markdown, take a quick look. I'm using a very inexpensive tool called Typora. There are a bunch of online editors for markdown. It basically is the formatting language that models use, both input and output. So here's the experiment brief. Those are the main bullet points. Here's just a slightly expanded version of that experiment brief, giving you more sort of human targeted prompts for what you should fill in for the purpose, describe at a high level the stimuli, describe the types of instructions you want to give the subjects. Here, this is very important. In narrative form, ideally like in bullets or numbers, describe the timeline. This is in some sense the logic of the stimulus exposure, and this really helps the model when you place it in sort of bullet form like this. Identify what you want the subject to be doing, and then here, obviously, critical, describe in kind of in classic sort of as if you're writing a paper, the method section for a article. List out the design, the factors, whether it's fully crossed, etc. Get into the blocking, randomization. But again, remember that this can be done post your first output and during the revisions section. So dependent variables and more notes for the topic at large. So here's a classic, a very old sort of 1960s effect spatial assignment spatial congruency task. And here's just an example of the brief that we use when we're testing our AI capabilities. So it's not a journal article length. It's kept very, very concise, but this is the style that will really shoot up the productivity of your AI interactions. So jumping forward, so what I just showed, that sort of methodology, you can use that with basically anything that you have access today. So Sato's custom GBT is excellent. You can basically use that prompting template to get better, more consistent output with that custom GPT, or you can use it with your favorite chat interface. Just that prompt style, you'll find extremely effective. Just to give you kind of a sense, we have 30 experiment briefs across 3 different sort of disciplines that we're using repeatedly to test the ability to get one-shot success for an experiment. And so I literally mean, you know, it may not have the actual stimulate as you wish. That's a whole different dimension, if you will. But being able to set the stage of a scene, execute the trial flow, collect the data you want. So we've had, so what we do is we measure the one-shot success, and then we sort of time box what it takes for the non-one-shot successes to be put into a working form. And we're absolutely finding that A, the prompt helps, and B, this is what we are working on right now and interested in basically just sort of making this as an announcement and collecting interest from our customers. We're building a chat power up, and I'll get a little more technical in a sec. But the point is that this power up, this add-on to your AI gives you a significant boost on one-shot success, and just as important, I would argue, more importantly, it reduces the time it takes you to redesign or refactor your experiments. And one last aspect that I think is difficult to really explain, those of you that have used coding AI a lot may appreciate sort of the spec constraints. So being able to write specifications that remain a living aspect to your project and being able to force the AI to go back and follow those constraints. These are all aspects that we're working on to be a little more exact. We have a, using the MCP protocol, that's kind of a buzzword many of you may have heard, a RAG server, so retrieval augmented generation, that has fully indexed and we have full control over. So much like the custom GPT, but we have full control over it because we're doing this and hosting this ourselves. It knows everything about Vizard, everything about SightLab, everything about hardware, plus some, insider knowledge as an experimental psychologist. So we're putting that all into our MCP, making that available in several different ways. All of these are using agentic style generative AI. And so that's, again, yet another buzzword. It basically is the thinking, the reasoning that you see in these, and these are best experienced and best explored in an IDE or command line such as Visual Studio Code or Claude Code or proper Copilot. So what does that mean? That means that WorldViz is working on not only the MCP, but integrations with alternative IDEs that give you the sort of the best-in-class agentic capabilities. So if you're comfortable learning agentic coding methods, want access to an MCP that knows Vizard and SightLab, please reach out at the end of this seminar. Let us know if you would be interested in access to early alpha testing of this. Thanks, and back to you, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I think just our sort of last couple slides here is just pointing out that, there's a ton of really cool resources on our website. This is just a quick overview of some of the customers, universities and research institutions that use our software. Maybe the next slide, I think, is our Partners in Science slide, Andy, if you just want to click forward to that one really fast. So on our website, if you go under academic research, you'll find the WorldViz Partners in Science report. So really highly recommend folks check this out. We just produced our most recent copy, and it's got, I think, what is it, just over 200, or is it close to 300 studies published in the last year and a half or so that use Vizard and SightLab in all sorts of different academic disciplines. And it's a really great resource for folks to see just how many different tools we have. So, or how different folks are using this in actual real world research contexts. So I think without further ado, we just have a few, we didn't have a ton of questions today in our Q&A, but I have copied a few into this last slide here, Andy. So if you go, let's do our final poll really fast. So this is for everybody who just attended today. What topics were the most interesting to you from this webinar? And what would you like us to cover in more detail in upcoming webinars? So we're really hoping that you guys can help guide the way that we present this information in the future. So your vote really counts for what we do next here. So we'd love to hear more about what you thought was interesting and what you'd like to see more of in the future. So we really appreciate you contributing one last time here. There will also be a quick exit survey that will go out when you close this webinar. So your feedback there is greatly appreciated and really guides how we create this content for you in the future. So give it one more second here, but it looks like a lot of you have voted and we really appreciate that. So yeah, let's share the results really fast. Most folks found the custom trained LLMs and agents for experiment building to be the most interesting, which is great. So we'll definitely be diving into that. And as Andy mentioned, we're really looking for qualified alpha testers of this latest MCP RAG enabled development tool that we've been developing internally here. So reach out to us if you would like to try that. We are certainly happy to talk more about these kind of, I think, more in the environment applications as well. So conversational agents using text and image prompts to generate 3D environments. And then certainly I think in the future we can dive into streamlining analysis. So yeah, I think let's if you don't mind, I think Andy, you're still the presenter. If you just click to the Q&A slide really fast, we can just wrap it up quickly there because there's not a whole lot. One more forward. Oops, I think we've gone too far forward at this point. Or how about this? I'll make myself the presenter, and then I can.
Yeah, and if you have any other questions after the webinar too, you could also email us for if you think of something.
Yes, exactly. If there's a question that we didn't cover today, we would be happy to answer that. So a few of the questions that we got, will these features be available on Vizard 7? So we kind of answered this in the chat. Yes, to some extent, but really it's more for Vizard 8 because Vizard 8 has the latest version of Python. So it's definitely recommended to be using Vizard 8 for all of these functions. Is SightLab made for Vizard related projects and codes, and is it precisely for Vizard? Yes, SightLab is based on Vizard, so it really is just an extension of the functionality of Vizard. It's a collection of Vizard codes. So if you look at the help.worldviz.com/SightLab, you'll see that we have a whole bunch of details there about what example codes and templates scenes that we have, including all the ones that you saw today. And they're all basically collections of Vizard code that are part of the SightLab package. Only for VR related projects. I mean, this is an interesting question. Really, Vizard and SightLab are streamlined for VR. That doesn't mean that folks haven't used it for conducting some desktop studies before, right?
Yeah,
but it is primarily for VR. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing to add to that is we can actually connect now with some screen-based eye trackers too. If you're doing a desktop-based study and you have like a Tobii or an iLogic, that will also work. I mean, that's not as common, but yeah.
Yeah. But does this all work with just Vizard 8? No, SightLab. So that, again, kind of same question as earlier. Yes, you can use some of this functionality without SightLab, but a lot of that generative code that you saw has been trained on SightLab and is generating basically SightLab functions, right? So I mean, so that's I'd say that SightLab is more or less required for a lot of this agentic coding that we've been demonstrating. This question I thought was interesting. What are the main limiting factors in multiple interactive AI agent VR implementation, hardware model parameter, HMD? So for multiple human users, each human user needs their own computer, their own software license, and their own headset. But maybe Andy or Sato, could you speak just briefly to, what are the limiting factors?
A very important limiting factor is that every computer is running its own headset with its own license of Vizard. You can basically have one server computer, everyone else connects as a client, but each one of them is going to need Vizard installed with SightLab and a headset for the multi-user interaction. I mean, as far as like the requirements, I mean, it's similar to what you would require for like any PC VR type game. So you want to have, I would say at this point, at least like a probably 2080 card, I would say would be around the minimum, like the 20 series, and more ideally something like the 3070 or higher or something, just to get into more of those requirement details. But
yeah. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback already. I'm seeing emails from people, so I'm excited to dive into these topics with you all. We are more than happy to answer these questions. Any questions you have about what we presented today in one-on-one calls, on a limited access, we can definitely get you alpha access to some of these latest tools. Again, you can download the trial version of SightLab directly from our website. So we encourage everybody to give this a shot, or try the latest version if it's been a while. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, sales@worldviz.com. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see our past webinars. And yeah, worldviz.com, help.worldviz.com, a ton of resources that that we work very hard to keep up to date and maintain for you all. So we look forward to your feedback. Thanks again for such a great webinar, and thank you, Andy and Sato, for your great presentation. Really appreciated it today. Yeah, any final thoughts, guys, before we shut this down?
No, thank you, Dan and Sato. And thank you all for attending, to our customers.
It's just a perfect timing. It's right at exactly an hour.
Hey, for once we're on time. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you. We'll see you in the future, and looking forward to the next one. So sign up for the WorldViz newsletter for announcements on the next webinar too.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. Shutting it down.